guys, we're going to call the City Council meeting for Monday, July 27th, 2022 order. Madam Clerk, on the minutes.
Thank you, Your Worship. If there can be a motion to adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting held on July 13th, 2020, and adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting for public hearings held on July 20th.
All right, may I have a motion? Moved and seconded. Any discussion, errors, or omissions? All right, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. That moves us to agenda additions and deletions, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Worship. We do have an agenda correction on page CNCL 10. The fourth bylaw, noted number 9986, has no noted opposition. That was an error on the agenda. In terms of agenda deletions, we have two items, items 17A and 17B. These were both considered at this afternoon's special open general purposes committee and referred back to staff and are no longer on the agenda. And then we do have an agenda addition, and that is item 17C regarding provincial consultation and money services business regulation. And there is a recommendation coming forward from this afternoon's special open GP for that matter.
All right, may I have a motion accordingly on the agenda? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Now we do have at least one delegation, none from telephoning in, but we do have some people who have joined us. So I will ask for a motion to resolve into committee of the whole to hear delegations on agenda items. That's moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, carried. So, gentlemen, please come on forward. Have a seat there. Those flat things are the microphones, so just stay close to them. And we'll ask you to introduce yourselves, and a delegation has 5 minutes.
Okay. I'm Dr. Stephen Ramsey. I'm a professional engineer providing professional advice to Sukhminder Sidhu, who is the applicant for the soil deposit permit application that you're considering tonight.
All right.
My name is Sukhminder Sidhu. I'm the owner of Jaguar Farms.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'll make a brief presentation here. So good evening. We'd like to thank the Mayor, Council, and staff for the opportunity to make a brief presentation related to the soil deposit application by Jaguar Farms that's being considered by Council tonight. I'm Dr. Stephen Ramsey, a professional engineer retained by Sukhminder Sidhu, the applicant and owner of Jaguar Farms, to provide technical support related to the application. Jessica Stewart, the agricultural and soil consultant, is unfortunately not able to attend due to a family situation. I'll provide a very brief summary of the application and some commentary on some issues that have been raised for consideration by Council. Jaguar Farms is a cranberry farm located at 19740 River Road in Richmond. The subject property has been an active cranberry farm since 1961 and has been operated by Jaguar Farms since 1978. Currently, about 85% of the property is cultivated in peat cranberry farm fields. The remaining 15%, which is the subject of this soil deposit application, was always intended to be part of the active cranberry cultivation area. Pursuant to permits obtained by Jaguar in 1991 and again in 2005, the area was prepared for cranberry farming, establishing the current elevation and infrastructure for water management. The application relates to the placement of approximately 32,000 cubic meters of peat soil to a depth of 0.6 meters in a 5.3 hectare area in the northwest corner of the property. I have provided professional review of matters related to drainage and water management, geotechnical considerations, including the security of the adjacent Kinder Morgan pipeline. Jessica Stewart of Adjournment Consultants has provided professional review of matters related to the agricultural potential of the property and soil enhancement. We have spoken previously to the Food Security and Agricultural Advisory Committee on June 18th and to the General Purpose Committee on July 20th. I would like to speak to three issues arising from those meetings. Issue one, the first issue raised relates to the use of peat soil as a growing medium and the possibility of using alternative growing media for cranberry cultivation. We note that cranberry is a bog crop and that it naturally grows in acidic peat soils. While alternative soils may be possible, this would be experimental. Moreover, Jaguar does not want to have different soils growing and different growing conditions on different parts of their farm and crop. This is why the peat that is being sourced for this project is from a very specific area in eastern Richmond and Queensborough, with peat similar to the existing peat at Jaguar Farms. This is where the peat has previously been obtained. It's also noted that there are currently about 809 hectares of cranberry farms in Richmond, all of which use peat for cultivation. The second issue raised relates to greenhouse gas. And before proceeding, I'll note that I'm a subject matter expert on biomass reuse issues retained by its Sustainable Technologies Development Canada federal agency with a substantial involvement in greenhouse gas issues. So the second issue here relates to the greenhouse gas impact of the peat soil to be used at Jaguar Farms. It's important to note that the peat soil is not being sourced exclusively for Jaguar Farms. The peat is soil that is being removed from other sites to accommodate development at those sites. The Jaguar Farms use of this peat soil is in fact a beneficial reuse of the material for agricultural and sustainable purposes, and so it is quite independent of the original extraction. Moreover, the cranberry crop utilizes the peat soil for nutrients and produces oxygen. It's part of an active growing environment. In fact, Jaguar has not used any artificial fertilizer in over 10 years on this site. So in this case, this soil deposit application is actually carbon neutral. The third point is there was concern raised about the possibility of contamination in the source soil. And Jaguar intends to have strict quality control of the source to ensure that only suitable peat soil free of contamination is provided. It's obviously not in Jaguar's interest to have any soil on their property which could compromise that. Moreover, the extraction of soil from the source sites is controlled rather strictly by conditions under the Environmental Management Act, which will require, in all cases, a phase 1 assessment, and should there be any indication of adverse uses of the property and the previous use of the property, there will also be a phase 2 and other investigation. So Jessica Stewart and Madrone Environmental have committed to a very strict quality control regime for that. So our request on behalf of Jaguar Farms is that Council would approve this soil deposit application with this additional information to consider. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Is there anybody else here? Councillor Green, do you have a question?
I do.
Something that wasn't asked the last time.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I would just like to ask the applicant about the peat and the source of the peat. It was noted that it was only going to be from developments that you're not connected to, so you're waiting for developments to come through. But the application is for 32,000 cubic meters of peat. Do you anticipate being able to satisfy this with independent developments? And if you're short on peat, what are your plans?
Are you going to have enough peat?
I think with the COVID, I'm pretty sure we're going to be short. I don't know when the projects will start up. So I think we will need an extension of some sort.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else here who is wanting to delegate on items on the agenda? And I told you we can't have it on the development permit. All right, may I have a motion to rise and report? It's moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, carried. So, gentlemen, you can have a seat here. We'll get to it during the course of our debate. Okay, so that brings us to the consent agenda. We've got a number of things here. The receipt of committee minutes, the 2020 UBCM Community Excellence Awards, the TransLink 2020 Capital Cost Share Program, the supplemental applications, the applications for a heritage alteration permit, and the Steveston Village Heritage Conservation Grant at the Steveston Hotel, live streaming of council and committee meetings and council school board liaison committee meetings and development permit panel meetings, and finally the award of contract 6676P supply of hydrovac services. May I have a motion to adopt those by general consent? Moved and seconded. Any discussion on that? All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Anybody opposed? That is carried. So that moves us past the consent agenda to the items that are taken off the consent agenda. The first one is the one we just heard the delegation on from the General Purposes Committee. This is the placement of fill application for the property located at 19740 River Road, the Sidhu property. General Purposes Committee recommends that the soil used for placement of fill application submitted by Minder Sidhu, the applicant, for the property located at the River Road property that I mentioned, proposing to deposit peat to develop and expand the current cranberry farming operation, be authorized for referral to the Agricultural Land Commission for the ALC to review and determine the merits of the proposal from an agricultural perspective as the applicant has satisfied all of the city's current reporting requirements, and I would so move.
I'll second.
And okay, it's moved and seconded. Councillor Wolf.
Great, thank you. Just a question to staff that came up after the delegation's presentation there. So if the delegate requires an extension, what's involved there? Do they need to apply to the city and to the Agricultural Land Commission?
Through the chair, yes, that is my understanding. An extension would have to come from both bodies.
Okay, and I do recall that at the last meeting, even Councillor Steves hadn't recalled seeing peat applications like this. So we'll see. Hopefully they get it in the 2 years. Thanks.
All right, I'm not seeing any other speakers then. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Those opposed? It's carried. Period. It's carried. Then we have the application for 10431 number 5 Road. The General Purposes Committee recommends that Richmond Zoning Bylaw 8500 Amendment Bylaw 10197 to create the Arterial Road Compact 2-Unit Dwelling, RCD zone, be introduced and given first reading. And secondly, that the Richmond Zoning Bylaw 8500 Amendment Bylaw 10195 for the rezoning of that number 5 Road property from RS1E to RCD be introduced and given first reading, and I would so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Councillor Day. No, Councillor Green. Is this for this one, or was that still from the past one? Go ahead.
I just had a question of staff through you to staff. I just wanted a confirmation that staff will be working on a plan to hopefully preserve one or both of those large trees in the odd laneway shape.
Through your worship to Councillor Green, should the rezoning proceed, there would be a development permit required as well as a servicing agreement. Through the servicing agreement, we will be looking at what can be done in the lane to preserve those trees or provide new landscaping within the lane if possible.
Okay, excellent. And then if you can just confirm one more time that these can't be townhouses like the rest of that strip because the depth is different with that weird laneway.
Through your worship to Councillor Green, that is correct. The OCP does identify it for compact lot duplexes, and there is also the lot size policy, which does preclude townhouses in this location.
Super, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Day.
Thank you very much. If Council could look at CNCL 240, there's a weird triangle in behind this lot. And because this is not being utilized, these houses will have tandem parking. And I think this should be sent back. I'm going to make a motion to refer this back because I think we can do a better job on this one. And then if you make a note also here, only the houses on number 5 Road were given letters by staff. And I feel everyone behind on Seamount should also have received those letters. So I think we could do better on this one. It's, it's close, but it's not quite there. So I make a motion to refer this back.
Second.
So it's moved and second to refer it back. Okay, on the referral, all those in favor? Those opposed?
Can I ask a question? From staff?
Yes?
With respect to the notification of the rezoning and the folks on Seamount, would they not be getting notification for the public hearing, and we would have opportunity to revise plans hearing from them at the public hearing?
Through your worship to Councillor Green, yes, should this proceed to public hearing, all properties within the 50-meter radius would be notified. The public consultation that occurred through the application process was done voluntarily by the applicant, not by city staff.
I thought we had increased it to 100 meters, not 50. No?
Through your worship to Councillor Green, I'd refer that to the clerk.
Madam Clerk?
I think, Your Worship, no, the current notification is still 50 meters at this point.
Good enough.
All right, on the referral, all those in favor? Those opposed? The three people who were in favor were Councillor Green, Day, and Wolf. The motion is defeated. So then,
Move the recommendation.
no, it's on the floor. It's on the floor already.
Question.
So, Councillor Green, your hand is still up. Was that from the referral? I assume so. Okay, so we'll call the question. All those in favor? Those opposed? It is carried with Councillors Wolf and Day opposed. Then we have the Library Cultural Center Mechanical Upgrade Project. General Purposes Committee recommendation is that the equipment renewal and GHG reduction project described as option 2 on page 4 in the staff report titled Library Cultural Center Mechanical Upgrade Project dated July 20, 2020 from the Director of Sustainability and District Energy be approved, and I would so move.
Second.
Okay. Now, this one, I want to, council has seen the material on this. There was a subsequent memo that we got just this weekend, and for anybody in the public who is listening, they may want to take this one under advisement. In a nutshell, at the Library Cultural Center, certain mechanical equipment has not failed, but it's at the end of its life, and it really needs to have something done. So if we just kind of patched it up, it would cost $150,000 plus. Or the first option is to basically replace like with like, and now this would see a greenhouse gas emission reduction of 10% compared to the current system because it's a little better system now. Or option 2 is to get a better GHG reduction system, and that would entail another $1.54 million, and also there's an operating budget increase of $53,500. And the reason and the rationale for why it's being suggested that we just replace like with like, it's less expensive, but the environmental performance is less, is better explained, frankly, by staff than by me. So I'm going to ask Peter Russell, can you give us a quick snapshot? Then we've got a number of speakers, we'll go to them, but just give us a quick snapshot so that it's in council and the public's mind as to why we're doing it. And Jim Young, I see you've got your mic on as well. Okay, guys, you go at it.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Members of council, certainly projects of this nature are complex, and staff have that task of distilling the important information for decision making. In this case, the report could have conveyed more full information, and the purpose for the memo is to convey that information to support council's decision making. As a quick note, as you did note, Your Worship, the replacement does need to take place. Both options that are in front of council today, the recommended option and the council decision from the General Purposes Committee, are both ready to go, if you will. So, recognizing the condition of the equipment. Staff's recommendation for option 1 was ultimately based on the economic business case. So with the additional 1.54 million in funding requirement to complete the project, staff's assessment noted that there are more effective ways to utilize that same amount of funding to have lower cost avoided greenhouse gas reduction projects. And the scale of future opportunities, whether it be new construction or, as the memo noted, facility maintenance over the next 5 years, there will be lower cost opportunities, and staff will pursue those through the capital planning process. Finally, the last point that's worth making in the memo is that really the higher cost of option 2, together with the increase in operating budget, comes at a time with uncertainty with the city revenues due to the current conditions, economic conditions related to the pandemic response. Your Worship, that's the summary we have prepared. If we're certainly, myself, Mr. Young, and other staff are here to respond to any questions of council.
Thanks, Peter. Jim Young, did you have anything to add to that?
No, Your Worship, I have nothing else to add to that.
Okay, so we'll go to questions. Councillor Wolf.
Great, thank you. Through Your Worship, to staff, just have a few questions at the front end here. So in this additional memo on the second page, it talks about under more information, project funding, option 1, it talks about this $840,000 in previously approved grant funding. Where does that come up in the back table? So that grant funding, I don't see a line for it. Is it taken off any other amount that's in that table?
Through Your Worship to Councillor Wolf, are you referring to the report on CLC's page 269?
No, I'm referring to the new memo that came out. So in there, that additional information, it refers to a previously approved grant funding, and I'm just trying to see if we're comparing A and B or 1 and 2, is that grant funding included in the economic comparison?
From a carbon, through Your Worship to Councillor Wolf, yes. From a carbon, avoided carbon point of view, yes, it was factored into both. We looked at the total cost of the project. We also looked at the incremental costs. We also looked at without incentives. And across all of those areas, you end up seeing quite a high cost for carbon, whereby that same investment could be translated to other project types at a lower cost per avoided carbon.
Your Worship, if I could just follow up on that and then have one more quick one. So just looking at some of these numbers in the table on emissions reductions or emission savings, it's pretty much like a 500% jump that we would save or reduce per year or percentage-wise. It's about 5 times or 500% change from option 1 to option 2. But the cost does not have that same considerable jump. Looking at the cost for option 1, it's over $1 million, but option 2 is not over $5 million. It's 3.5. So I don't know. I'm just pointing that out. And then my other question does has the word "if" in here for solar voltaics on the structure. As we know right now, we don't know, I guess, if PV could be installed on the library. Is that the case?
Through your worship to Councillor Wolf, at this stage we have not done a structural assessment of the library roof to be able to support solar voltaic. But certainly whatever equipment that we would put in place to replace the existing equipment, we would look to have that capability to make that connection should solar be installed at a future date.
Okay, those are my questions for now. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McPhail.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to staff. Well, thank you for the memo that we got. And some interesting information. So I guess my question really is, if you look at on the second page of the memo, and it talks about, funding we were to go with option 2, it could potentially impact other planned capital projects. Now, I thought that, we had funding in place for the Phoenix Net Loft for the first phase anyways. I know that we're still looking for funding for the Stevenson Community Center. So I guess really my question is, as a priority project, where would you see this project? Because I think that, we really strive to do everything we can to increase our sustainability actions in all our projects. So that's why I think we all went for option 2. So this has kind of made me kind of question things now.
Through your worship to Councillor McPhail, it is a priority to replace the equipment. As your worship said earlier, the equipment that's in place right now is in dire straits, and it does need to be replaced. The real question before council now is if that replacement is based on that like-for-like replacement, which doesn't have as good a greenhouse gas emission protocol versus the deep energy retrofit with the better greenhouse gas emissions protocol.
So I guess to follow up, when are we going to know more about the funding for the other projects that you allude to that may be impacted if we go ahead with this option?
Through your chair to Councillor McPhail, I would like to defer to finance, if there's somebody from finance can answer that question. It's likely, as you suggested earlier, the number of the projects are already funded. The Stevenson Community Center now, which has an order of magnitude cost of approximately 90 million, and there's still lots of work to do to refine that number, is likely going to need some sort of financing structure. And I see Jerry, Mr. Chong there, he can probably add more information.
Through your worship to Councillor McPhail, we'll be bringing forward the Stevenson Community Center project during the 2021 budget process. And that time we can make a determination if there's other competing projects for the funding that is available.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Au.
I want to ask staff, there's a difference in cost between option 1 and 2, and staff mentioned that perhaps the difference or the saving, so to speak, can be used on other projects that may generate better sustainability effect. So I just want to start to elaborate further, so how could that money be spent on other projects that may generate even better results?
Through your worship to Councillor Au, maybe a good example would be a recently implemented project where there was waste heat coming from the server room here at City Hall, and staff were able to recover that waste heat to supplement through a renewable source the current heat supply overall of the city. So those are the types of projects that staff look at annually through the capital cycle. And those projects are a bit more straightforward. They have simple payback periods, and the funding is not as intense as this project.
If I can add, your worship, to Councillor Rao, staff are right now in the process of developing next year's capital plan. And through that process, we'll work very closely together with sustainability to look for opportunities, very specifically to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And we do expect over the next 5 years that we're certainly going to see projects that give you a lot better bang for the buck than you might see with the Library Cultural Center project.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Liu.
Thank you. Through the chair. So just to clarify with staff, you had said then that over the lifespan, the difference in the two projects would be 3,325 tons of carbon. That sound about right? And then, and you're saying we could do better than that for the outlay of 1.5 million by putting it to other projects. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Green.
Thanks so much. I'm looking at the sheet here, and I think that Councillor Wolf made a really important point. When you're looking at life cycle emissions avoided, the difference between option 1 and option 2 is 592%. That's a really big number. And I would also like to point out that the life cycle of this equipment is expected to be 25 years. And I've seen our staff do such a good job making sure that they're maintaining our equipment properly. I wouldn't be surprised to see a few more years added to that, which brings us to literally 2050 when we're supposed to be net zero. So if we're not taking it seriously and doing these projects when they come up, I don't know, like I just don't know where that leaves us. So we have some grant money available for the deep retrofits. I think that we need to take advantage of that. And if we're short on money, we can always dial back the lawn bowling clubhouse, which is a private clubhouse for 300 people. We can do a lot better because the benefit for this is for everybody, every man, woman, and child in Richmond and Canada. This is very, very deadly serious, and we need to take it that way. So I'm very much in favor of option 2.
Councillor Day.
Match, I have a question of staff, Mayor Brody. So with these retrofits, whether it's option 1 or option 2, what is the life expectancy of the community or the library and cultural center?
Through your worship to Councillor Day, the current condition of the Library Culture Center is good right now. Council has supported staff very well in providing the funding necessary to keep that building in good condition. The actual longevity of the building will really depend on the funding availability for the future operations and maintenance. It is a facility, it is aging, and should Council continue to provide the adequate level of funding, that building will last for many, many, many more years.
I believe in the GP meeting, you said it would last 20 to 25 years. Is that still correct?
The equipment, through Councillor Day, I think what was referred to as the equipment within the building, the mechanical equipment would last 20 to 25 more years. There's different parts of the buildings will have different life expectancies.
Okay, so that's good. That's a good positive thing. Okay, when it comes to funding, given that this is a really green project, if we go ahead with what council voted almost unanimously for, which was option 2 and GP, I mean, isn't it possible that there would be extra additional funding sources, given that this is such a progressive project that will make like I think Councillor Green said, a 592% increase in carbon savings?
Through worship to Councillor Day, staff have applied for all available resources. We have funding from Clean BC and Fortis, as well as FCM. Currently, there are no capital grant programs from FCM, although the federal government may come up with new programs. Those programs would likely not be eligible for this project if this has funding.
Yeah, I actually a little bit disagree with you there. The federal government is consistently coming up with new programs for funding for projects just like this, and I think that given the phenomenal improvement in between option 1 and option 2, I'll be supporting option 2 because I think it's just the right thing to do. And the way I look at it, if not now, when? The environment's getting better, it's getting worse. So thank you very much.
Councillor Green, Councillor Day, your hands are still up. Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I'd like to ask staff a question. In option 2, if we didn't do option 2 for 1.54 million extra, what project and how much would it cost to reduce the greenhouse gas reduction in this project? What else would we do to reduce an equivalent amount? And what would it cost us? And when would we do it?
Through your worship to Councillor McNulty, on an annual basis, staff review the capital plan and bring forward those projects. We would look at buildings that for opportunities for heat recovery, efficiency. Currently, we wouldn't have a list that you're talking about. That said, we do believe there's opportunities at Watermania and the Richmond Ice Center to work with project development to identify those opportunities and bring them forward.
Yeah, actually, thank you. I did mean to put you on the spot because to me, this is a no-brainer. And it's common sense that, we brag about being a leader. We brag about getting our carbon area. And here we're quibbling over 1.5 million to come forward. Not that I'm saying we can't find that million, staff have just said we're going to go with the Ice Center and Water Mania, and we're going to have to invent a project, and it's not going to start this year. And in order to get rid of the equivalent greenhouse gas, it'll probably take us 5 years to do the same, if not longer, if we would do it. So I think we need to go with the Cadillac version, if you wish, but I don't call it the Cadillac version. I believe this is the right thing to do. Go with it, do it up. The Library Cultural Center is well used by, as was mentioned earlier, the whole community and continually. And I think this is something we can do. We've got various funds that we can take other monies out of if we have to, but I think just in savings alone, in reducing greenhouse gas, this will pay for itself over and over. So I'm going to support option 2, Your Worship.
You know, the challenge with this is that we're really seeing it by itself. I mean, if it was packaged up along with, say, the Stevenson Community Center, and we said, okay, for the extra money, we can reduce greenhouse gas on this one by so much, but at the Stevenson Community Center, we could do it twice as much for the same amount of money. I think that's the point that staff is making. We get a better environmental bang for our buck if in other ways. Having said that, I spoke to staff today to see whether it would be possible to just put a patch on what we've got for a while, and so that we could put it in better context and make a decision when we have a bigger picture. But the answer is, frankly, no. We just, because of the cost of a patch and because of the status of the mechanical equipment, I was told no, it just isn't feasible. So I don't see any way we can not support option 2, but it's just not an ideal situation driven by circumstance. So with that, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor?
Option 2.
Those opposed? So it's carried with Councillor Liu opposed. Then we get to the temporary road changes in Stevenson Village for August. Firstly, that option 2, one way on Moncton Street and one way on Bayview Street from August 4th, 2020 until and including Labor Day, as outlined in the staff memorandum, etc., dated August 20, dated July 16, 2020, from the Director of Transportation be approved. The staff provide clarification regarding the cost and the source of the funding for the street closures, and that staff provide a comprehensive signage plan for the street closures. Now, on those last 2, we have the information that was sought. Okay, so I'll make that motion. Do I have a seconder? All right, so that's seconded. Just to briefly recap what we had decided, around $30,000 will be the cost of closing down Moncton Street over the long weekend at the beginning of August, and let's see now, and having one way from number 1 road around to Moncton on 3rd, having it one way going west. So we did that over the July 1st. We're going to do that again. So the question was, what should we do? What, if anything, should we do for August? And the answer was, as outlined here, that we would use option 2, the one way on Moncton Street, the one way on Bayview Street. So one way on Moncton Street would be eastbound, and one way on Bayview Street would be westbound. And that would be from after the long weekend right through August, through to and including Labor Day. So that is the suggestion, and the cost of that is roughly $32,000 for that extra time. So we have some speakers. Councillor Green.
Thank you. I think, as everyone knows, I am in favor of pedestrianizing Moncton with some great plazas that would be fantastic. But that being said, there is not support around the table for that. So I'd like to make the plan as good as possible. If I can ask staff a question then about the memo on page 4, it's the map of the temporary road changes from August 4th to September 7th. Sorry. I'm looking at Bayview, the one-way configuration, but there isn't additional room on both sides of Bayview. But there are significant choke points for pedestrian traffic on Bayview on the north side between number 1 road and 2nd Avenue. Can that be addressed through reconfiguring the lane setup? Because I saw on Canada Day, it was just doubled in size on the south side rather than additional space on the north.
Through your worship to Councillor Green, it can be addressed at council's direction. Staff feels that most of the pedestrian traffic is on the side that's adjacent to the water, and that's why it's configured that way. And we think that that's the best way to do it. But if council directs us to create more space on the north side, we can do that as well.
I would like to provide that direction through council. I've been down there a lot, and what I've seen is the bikes take that space over because it becomes very agreeable for them. But we need to have it on both sides of the road so that it's more
what exactly are you proposing?
So that the additional pedestrian space is balanced between the south side and the north side of Bayview, because right now it's doubled up on the south side of Bayview, but there needs to be additional space on the north side as well.
Now, so when you say balance, are you saying it would be half each? Is that what you mean by balance? So we're not taking extra space.
It's still one-way traffic as per the plan, but that there is space on both sides. The north side only has a standard size with sidewalk. And quite a lot of people go between the Blends corner and the pub corner. Sorry, I'm blanking. Britannia. So we need more room on that side.
Lloyd, can you comment, having analyzed this, do we need to reallocate it like that in your opinion?
The staff recommendation is to just expand it the way that we present it to you. There's a couple of spaces where even with the current extra pedestrian room, we find our choke points, and we really feel that it's best to do it in this manner. That's where we got to. By just moving the extra space that we've created on the south side of the road and taking over the extra travel lane.
All right. So that would be that's not the new provisions. That would simply be giving a staff direction. So we would have to have a motion following this on whether council is in accordance with that or not. So we'll come back to you on that.
Okay, that sounds good. I'd just like to finalize by saying that I've had so many people reach out to me and beg for more room in Steveston, and we could be doing better.
Councillor Wolf.
Great, thank you, Your Worship. I have a number of questions to staff, and I definitely will be in support of Councillor Green's motion coming if it is as I think I heard it. So I visited Steveston and drove this area and then walked the whole area in the middle of the day on Saturday, and I'll just share some of my discoveries and then questions to staff on that. So it was incredibly busy on Bayview, and the intersection that would just kind of blew my mind that there weren't people getting hit was Bayview and 2nd Avenue. People, yes, there's a crosswalk on either side of 2nd Avenue, but people weren't using the crosswalk, and they weren't sure that that narrowed road was actually 2 ways. So people were just kind of looking one direction and thinking, oh, okay, it's already one way, I can go across. So I think the cones need to be on both sides of where the vehicle travel lane is. So I think Councillor Green's adjustment there might help to do that instead of just having an open curb on one side. it really needs to be blocked. We saw in the news, people go to Steveston just to drive around their supercars or cool cars. It's just a destination to congestion to during these sunny days. I saw a number of people using single reuse water bottles, probably even more on days like this. A question to staff will be if we will have our portable drinking fountain modules in place on weekends or all throughout the August.
We're talking about traffic.
Well, I know, but looking on the map here, I saw these other signage, for example. Where would the closest water station be? I think that could have been on some of that signage there. Next one, there's a question I have about, if I have this correct, on the second page of the memo, this is for the BC Day weekend where Moncton is fully closed. It shows 4 people characters on Moncton. Would there not be any on Bayview as well? And ideally, it would be like an RCMP traffic person that would be directing when people can cross and not necessarily use the crosswalks, but when the traffic gets stopped, like it has in the scramble, everybody go every which way, and you have that person of authority helping to keep people safe. So can I get that response from staff on where people will actually be if this map is accurate?
Through your worship to Councillor Wolf, where we had planned to have staff is where it's marked on Moncton Street, but there is a little bit of doubling up of staff to help with loading zones and things like that, and there's enough staff to actually reallocate a person to go help in a place where we find that there's a difficulty or trouble for traffic turning or for pedestrians. So there would be an opportunity once we see what really happens to reposition some staff.
Great thing. And then, so our public works staff, would they be their role, let's say Bayview and 2nd Avenue, they would basically stand at the curb and put their arm out and say, don't walk past here. Or would we need someone with a whistle and more training and authority to stop traffic as well?
Through your worship to Councillor Wolf, no, these are trained traffic control personnel that work on our construction sites and all over the city. They're trained to do exactly this, direct traffic.
Oh, okay, terrific. Then my final question on that. Couldn't find where it was located, but I read somewhere that our message boards are changeable message signs. Do we rent those or we own them? The ones that are highlighted on the map here.
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Wolf, I believe we own them.
Oh, okay. Great. Okay, that's all. Thanks.
Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I'll be supporting the option here. I think all members of council have been getting input with regard to Steveston, and we know the issues down there. I walk down there every day, not just on weekends, and I don't drive down there, but I can tell you what's going on down there, that's for sure. I have a couple of issues that haven't been dealt with yet, Your Worship. And number one is, regardless on Moncton and or Bayview, whether we have a walk lane or not, I was told by Mr. B last time that within those cones is part of the bike lane. It is impossible for people to walk and bikes coming to in front of you and behind you. You've got to get out of the way. I would maintain that we have cycling in with the traffic and become motor vehicles like they should be. I would also ask that we reduce the speed to 20K. There is no reason why we have to have 30, 40K, and that's what people do down there. Steveston, there's no rules when you get to Steveston, okay, in terms of traffic. Going down Moncton, going down Bayview. And we ask the cyclists to go away from the pedestrians and let people walk. Many mothers and families and stuff with carriages and strollers and seniors with canes, etc., trying to walk down them. We know on the south side, because of the waterfront, there are more people there than there is on the north side. We have to take that into consideration, and I ask staff to look at. The other thing is at 1 in Moncton, the light. Those quadrangular signages we have, they have to be in big, bold letters. 2-inch letters don't do anything for anybody in a car. They've got to be 4 and 5 and 6-inch fonts so that people can read. One way, traffic 15 Ks, whatever it is. And I think I asked staff to look at it, not 30K, because if it's 30, it's 40. Okay. And we cut that back and we make it safe so people can walk back and forth between the cones. They don't have to go to crosswalks in Moncton. They can walk across the mid block, whatever. And we're not asking them to jaywalk, but if cars are going slow enough, they can go between businesses, etc. So I think we just got to use a common sense approach down there, Your Worship. That message must get across, and we're only going to do that through large signage. And the other thing I have is there is no, when you're on the waterfront, the Stevenson Harbor Authority makes it mandatory to wear a mask. But there's nobody enforcing it down there, and there's nobody enforcing social distancing along the waterfront. And on that, I know it's not traffic, but if people are walking and then going in there. So I think we have to really, really look at this carefully. As we go along, we evolve. Once we get going to the BC weekend coming up, and then every day, and if we can change it to make it safe. Yes, we want people to spread out. We need it. You know, Bonnie has said so. However, we've got to make it safe for them to spread out. And we can do that by resolution tonight. So I'm hoping that all members of council will look at this very, very seriously, since we're going to be doing this for a month, including the Labor Day weekend. Thank you.
Lloyd, on this issue of speed, is that something you can do simply with signage, or would we have to change bylaws for that?
Your Worship, I believe that we can do it with signage, but I can check to be sure. But I think anytime we change the speed limit for a construction zone or anything like that, we don't change the bylaw. So I'm pretty certain we can do it with just signage.
Good. Thank you.
Can anyone confirm that?
I'll check with law this week, but I'm pretty sure.
Okay. I mean, my point is, I think that we need to take a look at speed limits in the village of Steveston. I'm far from convinced that we can just do it by signage. I think we have to, like we did when we reduced kind of in the residential areas, I think we reduced it to 30K or something like that. Carly, is that you? Is someone going to give an opinion on this? All right. The other thing is, to whoever, maybe this is probably Carly, on this issue of masks, don't we have ambassadors going around, the waterfront, etc., in Steveston, reminding people to wear masks and keep social distance and all that?
Yeah, that's correct. We do have community ambassadors in Steveston. There is no requirement to wear a mask. The Port Authority requiring people to wear a mask on their docks is similar to what businesses may require, and that's not something that we educate or enforce.
So we don't go onto the dock?
Nope.
For the most part, we don't. We were on the dock during the Spot Pond Festival when we were helping out the Port Authority. We were down there quite a bit. The goal being to get the Port Authority to take care of that and not city staff.
All right. Councillor, Bill, your hand's still up. Councillor Day.
Do you have me?
Yes? Councillor Day.
Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to ask staff a couple questions. So we received this memo of July 23rd. Will this be part of the minutes of this meeting? Because I think we're bringing a lot of attention to it, and when we do the minutes of the meeting, this should be part of it.
I'm sure that we can make that part of the minute.
Okay.
Claudia is shaking her head yes.
Okay, thank you. Then I had a question of Ms. Williams. So this is the list of businesses that have already applied for the patio. But is this a current list? Because I think there's more now, isn't there?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, that list was current as of Thursday.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because I drove by the Pioneer Pub, they were setting up a massive tent and they're not on the list. So what I'm really pleased to see is that there's a whole bunch of businesses in Steveston that have signed up for expanding their patio. And that wasn't happening a month ago. So I'm really pleased to see them jumping on board. And if businesses that are not restaurants want to open up and expand out, they can do that. And I think this is the right thing to do. But the point of this is to try to keep people safe. We're not doing this just to try to make businesses successful. For me, I mean, we know the COVID numbers are up. We saw what happened in Kelowna. So we know that Steveston is a victim of its own success. Everybody wants to go to Steveston, and it's our job to make sure that everyone's safe. So I think that making these small changes is going to help keep people safe, especially over August when it'll be so popular. So I'll be supporting this 100%. And the changes that Councillor Green has suggested for Bayview, those are just fine with me as well. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll remind everybody, please, when you're not speaking, to mute your microphones because we're getting some good background noise here. Councillor McPhail.
Thank you, Your Worship. To the speed in Steveston Village, is it not 30 kilometers already? I know that Moncton, as you're heading west from Railway, changes to 30 around the community police station, and I thought it carried into the village. Anyways,
Just a minute. Let's ask Lloyd. Let's ask Lloyd that question. Lloyd, do you know?
Yeah, yes, Your Worship. It's 30 kilometers an hour in the area that we're speaking about here. Yes.
Okay, so vehicles need to be reminded that it is 30 kilometers in the village. So, after being in the village the last couple of weekends, I'd like to see the whole village closed to cars. But, we know that's not possible for many reasons. And, the business community is split on this. And I really want to thank staff for all the work they're doing. I saw a city crews out there a couple days ago taking measurements. And so I guess things are rolling along. And I'm just wondering if there's been any initial feedback from businesses on this. I've heard from a few are, one or two are happy, one or two are not. So just wondering if there's been any feedback to staff.
Lloyd, anything to add?
Your Worship, I think this is one for Katie to speak to if she's on the line. If not, I can take a stab at it.
Through Your Worship to Councillor through Your Worship to Councillor McPhail. When we were out speaking with businesses from July 15th to July 20th, they certainly did share their feedback and their sentiments with us. I think everyone was hoping that the July 1st long weekend would be more of a trial than it was, and the weather didn't turn out as nicely as everyone had anticipated. So I think there was a lot of anticipation in our discussions around the BC Day long weekend and what that would actually mean and do for the village. And so I think the feedback has been positive, and the businesses largely were happy to hear from the city and be involved in the process.
All right, thank you. And I think everybody has to do their part, vehicles, pedestrians, and cyclists. And I think, as Councillor McNulty said, really, it's all about education. And personally, I think that I'm going to leave the road changes to the traffic experts. They're the ones who know how roads should be set up when we're doing this kind of thing. Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be supporting the recommendation on the floor.
All right. So let's call the question on the motion on the floor. All those in favor? Those opposed? It is carried with Councillor Green opposed. Now, Councillor Green, you want to make a further motion to reallocate the extra space. Go ahead.
To reallocate some pedestrian space on Bayview on the north side, because there is none on the plan as of now.
So you want some on the south side, you want some on the north side, right?
Correct. And if I can actually, from the discussion that we had about the businesses, I'd actually like to make a part B, which is that we get a map of the parking areas in Steveston, a nice PDF available for all the businesses to share and have available on their websites and social media.
Well,
so
we
that
don't,
they can.
we don't need that a motion to that effect. We can just direct staff to make the map available. Okay, Lloyd?
Yes, Your Worship, we can do that.
Can it also be more complete than the one that we got? Because this one doesn't include most of the parking spots in Steveston.
I'm trying to get a seconder for your motion. Is that motion seconded?
Seconded.
Okay, Councillor Wolf is seconding. So that's to take some of the space that's all on the south side of Bayview and put some on the north side. Councillor McPhail.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just through you to staff. So you've heard some of the comments, and you know, as I mentioned earlier, you and your department are traffic experts. Is there any merit in the suggestion?
Through Your Worship to Councillor McPhail, the allocation of space is, you know, it's a bit subjective, right? And there's merit to most configurations that we can dream up here when we're trying to create space for people. From staff's perspective, we felt that creating one bigger space creates more space for people to commingle and deal with the bicycle riders that are sharing some of their space. We felt that kind of dividing that space up and making two smaller spaces wasn't necessarily the best direction to go if one of our overall goals is to create more space for people. And lastly, on the south side of the road, there's one or two points where we find, even with the current walkway system, that sometimes during busy days it's a bit busy. So we also feel that alleviating those spaces is probably reasonably important.
Thank you.
Councillor McNulty.
Bill?
Yeah, Bill, your mute's on.
Thank you, Your Worship. Give it to Mr. B. Give my comments earlier. Can we have the cyclist share with the motorist if the traffic speed has been reduced? Right now, they're sharing with pedestrians. And I can tell you, quite frankly, I've almost been knocked over 4 times. And that walking from 3rd Avenue all the way over to 1st Avenue. Okay? Cyclists are in there within those orange cones and trying to go around. And some people have kids in the back, etc. It's not compatible. So we need to move them out. So as Councillor McPhail said, what is the best solution to remove the cyclists away from the pedestrians and also be safe? I'd love to see a bicycle lane dedicated for cyclists and let the pedestrians have some space. So my question to you is, where are you going to take the space? You've got to give cars space. If we move the cyclists out into the median or whatever, then how much space is left? Aren't the roads 33 feet wide or somewhere in that neighborhood? To Mr. B.
Yeah, through Your Worship to Councillor McNulty, they vary throughout the city. In general, most road dedications are around 20 meters wide. The lanes on the roadways vary between about 3¼ meters to over 4. So it varies throughout the city, depending on what the neighborhood is like.
Could you take this back and look at it and give us a memo back to come up with the safest proposal, even though we've endorsed 2 to look at whether we should have cycling and we should have walkways? Because it's only going to get busier, especially on the long weekend. The weekdays we can get away with it, but long weekend we can't.
The motion that's on the floor is to take some of the extra space from the south side to the north side. My suggestion is if that doesn't meet council's approval, what we could do is give direction or have a motion to tell staff to revise and make changes on Bayview Street as they see fit from time to time, so they can be constantly reviewing it. It's a question of speed. It's a question of bike lanes. It's a question of whether more pedestrian areas are needed. And it could be one side, it could be the other. But if we just give them the latitude to review it and make the changes, I think then, as Lloyd B says, I think it's part science, but it's part art too.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Councillor Day, then Councillor Steves. Oh, Councillor Day, anyway.
Thank you very much. Mr. B, you just said that you kind of wanted a nice wide Bayview walkways to kind of keep all the pedestrians together, but isn't the idea to separate people? And wouldn't it be better, I mean, the motion divides the path of the people walking, to the north and south side. I'm very concerned that what we would normally do, which is have big walkways and everybody would kind of congregate, doesn't really work during COVID-19, and maybe having two wider separate walkways would be safer for this particular reason. What do you think?
To your worship, to Councillor Day, we believe that creating the bigger walkway on the south side is safer in that manner. We find that most of the people are already congregating on the south side of the road and traveling down that way. And also we feel that making the one bigger space actually creates more space for people. The biggest problems that we have are in areas where it's a little narrower and people congregate or line up. And so if you have a small congregation in a narrower walkway, all of a sudden you sort of have more of a social distancing problem, where when we have a little bit more of a plaza sort of effect, we have a little bit more actual space for people to spread out into and to avoid others.
Thank you.
Let's see who else. Councillor Steves.
Yeah, thanks. Actually, I agree with the mayor on this one. I think we should adopt the original motion as put forward and leave it up to staff to make alterations as they see fit. I think that on the north side of Bayview, we've got a grassy area there that can be utilized. And I think that if there are areas where there are bottlenecks, we can simply make corrections as we go along. As for the bikes, that maybe we might want to tell people here, once you get to Stevenson, walk the street, maybe you should walk your bike. There's different options. And I think it's really important to maintain low speed limits. The only reason for going up Moncton Street and Bayview Street is to go to one or two or three of the parking lots and the parking spots all along the roadside. So there's no reason to go to be speeding. I'm just wondering if staff, if there's anything like portable speed bumps or something like that they can put in to make sure that the speed is down. I don't know that, but maybe you can take a look into it. The other thing is I'm still disturbed, as others are, going to Stevenson and finding so many people down there aren't wearing masks. So no matter what they do in terms of widening the streets, I'm not going to go there. And I think that the business community, everyone else, had better recognize that. And people that go there without masks, it seems to me that people think that the COVID-19 pandemic is over. And I think that people that go there without masks are certainly doing more harm to having people go to Steveston than anything we do in terms of rerouting the roads and the walkways, because there's a lot of people simply aren't going to go there if they aren't wearing masks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Au, this is on this additional reallocation issue.
This is a very complex situation, and I don't think we can solve the problem, all the kinds of problems, just by having an armchair decision. So I would agree with the argument that perhaps we should give it to the staff to make adjustments and make on-spot decisions from time to time, because that weekdays can be different from the weekend. So I don't think we should just by creating more space on the north side of the street would solve the problem.
Great. So your hand is still up. Harold, your hand is still up as well. So I'm going to call the question then on the motion from Councillor Green, basically reallocating some of the space from the south side, some of it over to the north side on Bayview. All those in favor? Those opposed? It's carried with Councillors McNulty, McPhail, Lou, Steves, Al, and the mayor opposed. So the suggestion that I made that a number of people talked about is that we would direct staff to review and make changes from time to time to the extra space that has been allocated on the south side of Bayview.
Second.
So that's moved and seconded. Have we beaten that one to death?
No.
Okay.
Question?
Yes, Councillor Wolf.
Yes. Can I also ask that? Well, actually, just earlier today, we potentially scheduled ourselves a meeting in late August, I think last week of August. Could we also get a report back then and with recommendations if we do any further closures during Labor Day weekend?
Well, we've decided what we're going to do on Labor Day. If staff has recommendations, they can always make them. And so, Lloyd B., if you could bear that in mind, if you've got something to recommend that you need council direction, we will have one session towards the end of August, although I'm hopeful that we're not going to extend the subject matter of that unnecessarily. All right. So, on this idea of having staff stay on top of it and make changes from time to time on Bayview, all those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. All right, that I think does us with Stevenson Village. Brings us to council remuneration and the expenses. These are the yearly reports that we always have. So
move the recommendation.
Yeah, that's the 2019 council remuneration and expenses be approved. That's moved and seconded. Councillor Wolf.
That was from last.
I can't hear you, Michael.
It was from last time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Day?
Yeah, I had a question of staff. Thank you very much. On page CNCL 275, it lists all the expenses for council, and I'm pleased that the report does state that while Councillor Dang and Councillor Johnson were not on council, they still were paid because, of course, they were getting their remuneration after years of service. What I am confused about, though, is there a cap on council expenses? Because I couldn't help but notice that two councillors were very close to the mayor's expenses, and of course, the mayor is very busy and goes to so many events, and it just surprised me that two councillors were so close to the mayor's expenses. And what is the cap? Is there one?
There is not a cap.
Okay. Just to staff, are there other councils in, say, Metro Vancouver that have a cap on spending by councillors?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, I'm not aware of any caps. I believe each municipality reinforces or oversees their own expenses, since it's reported out annually.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we direct staff to just check into that, because if we're compliant with what every other city's doing in Metro Vancouver.
There's a motion on the floor. Secondly, the only cap I'm aware of is in Vancouver. Each councillor gets $30,000 per year of discretionary spending for whatever they see fit. So I'll call the question on the remuneration and expenses. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That is carried. Councillor Day, you wanted something else?
I wouldn't mind. I think I'd like to ask that we just make sure that this is, kind of similar to what other cities are doing. Obviously, Vancouver is a much, much bigger community or city.
So what's your motion?
The motion is that staff be directed to look into council expenses and determine whether we should have a cap, similar to what Vancouver has, which is $30,000.
Second.
Okay. I think you're putting staff in a very difficult position. It's not staff's job to tell us what our remuneration and our benefits should be. It's up to us to tell them.
Well, so we can tell them once we have the information. So the council should make a decision. It's not staff's decision, but how do we make that?
Councillor Day, I have the floor. Okay. So I think that we have to look at what is reasonable. And I've looked at page 275. I just don't see anything that I think is unreasonable. The large amounts are usually FCM, UBCM, LGLA, and related. It's nice not to have any expenses at all. I just don't know that I think you're fully doing your job if that's what you do. So anyway, Councillor Day, your hand is still up. Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think all of the councillors try to pay attention to their expenses and go to conferences or not go to conferences as they see fit to learn or to participate. I know that if we had just set some sort of arbitrary number as our cap, then when we run into situations where we select certain councillors to go and go to certain things, we had a couple councillors that we were going to ask to represent us in Wakayama, Japan this year. And it turned out that they couldn't go, but we'd certainly come up with the money for it. We'd certainly decided that that was something we wanted to happen. And we don't want to have a bylaw that then we have to rescind or change to make that happen. I think everybody's careful with the tax dollars, maybe some less than others, and throwing it at GHG buying. But, I think everybody's pretty careful, and putting arbitrary limits doesn't necessarily make any sense.
All right. I think that's all the speakers. So then on the motion to have staff review the expenses vis-a-vis other cities, all those in favor? Those opposed? So, Councillor Green, are you in favor? I can't see your hand. I'm sorry. So it's opposed by Councillor McNulty, Councillor Green, Councillor McPhail, Liu, Al, and the Mayor. The next one is the 2019 Statement of Financial Information.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. And these are, of course, all the figures for the staff. Any comments, questions there? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. The next two items have both been referred out, 17A and B. Brings us to 17C, which is the provincial consultation on the money services. Hang on, I've buried my recommendation. And the recommendation coming out of Special General Purposes Committee this afternoon is the responses included in attachment 2 of the staff report titled Provincial Consultation. Hey guys, we've got to mute our mics. Okay, there's some really loud background noise happening. So the responses from attachment 2 of this report dated July 17, 2020 from the General Manager of Community Safety be endorsed for submission to the BC Ministry of Finance, and I would so move. And it's seconded. This is something that we've been looking at in various contexts for a long time. And I'll just read what staff recommended, that we've been asked to make a response to a survey. And we're saying that the province should create a regulatory agency for these money services businesses, which have the following mandate. First of all, a robust licensing regime similar to that of Quebec, which generates enough revenue to pay for the department that oversees it. Secondly, the authority and investigative tools to conduct inspections of MSBs and detect suspected underground money services businesses. Thirdly, adequate resourcing level, train staff to proactively conduct expenses of licensed and suspected underground operations. Fourthly, the ability to develop and share intelligence on suspected underground MSBs with local law enforcement, local government, and FinTrack. Fifthly, the technology and staff trained in data analytics and intelligent analysis to monitor suspicious activity around MSBs. Sixthly, education and outreach towards MSB operators as well as the banking and credit union industry regarding new trends, red flags, and modalities of criminal activity. Seventh, regular consultation with key government and private sector stakeholders to develop strategic plans which establishes clear performance metrics. And for MSBs, there should be a new department given the mandate, strategic direction, resources, and tools to proactively regulate the money service businesses. At the same time, it recommends that the definition of money service businesses be expanded to include white label automated machines and armored car services. Now, that's a lot of complex stuff, but I think that it's a very sound report, very extensively reviewed. Staff is here for any questions that may arise, and I'll certainly support the recommendation. Councillor Green.
Thank you, and I just wanted to extend my thanks to staff for how much work that they've put into this. We know that unfortunately we've had a lot of this activity in Richmond as well as Vancouver, and we're kind of at ground zero, so to speak. And so I'm very happy to see us moving forward on this piece of it. It fits well into the other things that we've advocated for, which is the transparent registry and things like that. I did have a question of staff about the white label machines. Will that also include Bitcoin machines? Because I have seen one or two in Richmond, and it kind of was a red flag for me.
Through your worship to Councillor Green, virtual currency machines would be considered money service businesses under the definition of FinTrack. So they would be covered under that if there was to be regulation for money service businesses. White label automated machines fall outside of that definition, hence why it was brought up as a question to expand the definition.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, because like a Bitcoin machine looks like a bank machine, but it's not. And I couldn't think of any good reason to have one, to be perfectly honest. So I'm happy to see that in there. And hopefully they take the recommendations very seriously. And if there's any way of putting into the report to the province how much our community needs this, because we've been affected so much, that would be really great to see. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McPhail.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to staff for a really in-depth report. And we've waited a long time to see some action come about from the consultation and from the investigations that have taken place. As mentioned earlier today, I'm hoping that you'll be able to personalize it. So from our point of view, the impact to our community and the impact to our RCMP detachment, they were substantial. And so put a face to it in our correspondence. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Councillor Day.
Mayor Brody, yeah, I'll obviously be supporting this 100%. Dealing with these basically money laundering operations all around the city and dealing specifically with money exchanges has created an ongoing problem for the RCMP and for people who live here in Richmond. And we are ground zero, and we have to make sure that we let the province know just how much it has affected life here in Richmond. I think the staff report is fabulous. I think the suggestions that council put forward to add things is great. So yeah, let's hope they're listening. And I know we were told earlier in the General Purposes Committee meeting that this could take 1 to 2 years, but if there's any way to fast track this and to let the province know that this is a top-notch item for us and needs urgent being dealt with, I think that would be really, really great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councillor Al.
I definitely support the staff recommendation and the points being made in the report. And as I've expressed earlier in General Purpose Committee meeting, that I'm quite disappointed that this process has been so slow. The provincial government hasn't done fast enough. So I would like to urge staff to make this point to the provincial government, saying that we would like to see this going forward much faster. And having said that, I want to ask staff mentioned in the report that as a municipal government, we can do only so much. But since February 2019, it's been a year and a half. So what else have we achieved or have we done in the city, if in our own jurisdiction, to tighten up the situation or to improve tighten up the loopholes and to improve the situation? So what has we done as a city since February 2019?
Through your worship to Councillor Au, staff have participated on a intergovernmental task force to deal with money laundering called Project Athena, and that has generated a lot of the research and some of the policy background documentation that has gone into this provincial report. At the same time, the local detachment has cooperated with multiple levels of provincial and federal law enforcement to step up disruption and investigations into organized crime. And then we've also been participating in a slew of studies, such as the beneficial ownership registry. Council has advocated for the expansion of that registry to the private corporations, not just land-owning corporations. And staff has also been in regular communication with the Cullen money laundering investigation as well.
Yeah, your hand's still up, Chuck. I would like to add to that, if you remember the report that we got, I don't know, it must have been a year ago or so, maybe last fall, that talked about various requests that we were making. Some of them went to UBCM, the idea that there should be more transparency for businesses, that we would know who's the beneficial owner and the directors and officers of various companies, that we would know for land, there'd be more transparency in terms of the ownership of land so that we would know who's the true owners of the land. We asked for more resources in terms of the RCMP, more investigative resources as well. There were other things that were in there that we asked for as council, and I think they've taken it under advisement, if nothing more, at this point. All right, Councillor McNulty.
Worship, you summarized some of the things that I was going to make. Can we, my question to Mark was, what can we further do? Just because we're sending this off to Victoria, does the laundering still exist? And when I see it planning and coming through, a numbered company comes in and applies to do X, Y, and Z. We want that transparency. And what else can we do at the local level while this is going on? Because it's my intention, as what you said, Your Worship, we're asking businesses to declare. We're asking people to be open. Who are the officers? And that's so. I guess since we've taken the brunt of basically what has happened, because the signs are still here in Richmond, and unfortunately some of them continue. What else can we do to Mark? And can we make the transparency when people apply that we do not accept numbered companies and we do not let architects apply on behalf of numbered companies and other people, that it must be the owner applying for, or at least through a letter for, let's say, a development, let's say a business.
Through your worship to Councillor McNulty, The transparency around the ownership is critical, as in there's multiple case studies where proxies with clean criminal background records have been put forward, but really the controllers are beneficial owners that hide behind numbered companies. My understanding is that later in 2020 in the fall, the actual land ownership registry will be going online. There is a private, so they're all private corporations that are not just landowning corporations. They do need to keep track of their registries now around beneficial owners, and that's accessible to law enforcement and tax authorities. We have yet to hear from the Ministry of Finance whether that will be brought into a public searchable registry. Right now, only the land owning corporations will be in a searchable beneficial ownership registry. Bringing transparency to a broader definition of corporations, not just landowner corporations, would do what you've suggested, and that is to open the light on shine the light on who are the actual beneficial owners behind some of these money service businesses and other corporations.
Okay, my next question then to you and also to our lawyers. What if in a month's time, company number 125 applies for a subdivision or a townhouse development, and we turn around and say, sorry, we will not entertain it until we know who the landowners are, specifically by name? Can we do that? Can we as a municipality do that, regardless of what the other municipalities do?
Tony, can you help us?
Your work, through your worship to Councillor McNulty, there may be challenges with respect to demanding some of that information, or at least compelling it. An owner or a corporation is a person in law, and unless the legislation is clearly set out that the city can demand this additional information, then the challenge would be to convince a court that the person itself alone can't force the city to consider its application, that it's implied that the city has a right to demand additional information that it feels is necessary in making its decision. So it will become an argument of, what was intended by the legislature when it put in the provisions in the Local Government Act and the Community Charter for persons to make applications for rezoning or for subdivision, etc. So I'm not saying the answer is we can't. I'm just saying that there is some ambiguity, and that we would have to consider that more carefully.
Well, I'd like to see us consider that as policy, and we put it out there. 95%, 99% of our people are upfront, put it on the table. We know who they are. The families who develop in here in Richmond, etc. We have no problem with it. There are those, some of them we have some questions about, and it would always be nice to know, and it just puts everybody on level playing field. And I think it's something I mentioned before, and I think it's something we looked at. Maybe we don't want to know who they are, but I think in terms of those that are flipping property, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, it still exists. And I will be supporting everything going to Victoria, but we need to take all the tools out, put them on the table, and not miss anything in this case. Yeah.
All right, Harold.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to agree with Councillor McNulty. Actually, years and years and years ago, we had a great debate when some of the earlier builders were building in Richmond and doing very shoddy work. And actually, we told certain builders that they simply couldn't build in Richmond. We simply withdrew their business licenses, and they couldn't operate here. And they all went to Surrey. But anyway, that's what happened. A question I do have, however, it seems to me as this goes ahead, we may get to know some of the properties in Richmond and some of the facilities that where laundered money occurred. And is there a way that we can go back and do something about those properties? Because this has been happening for 10 years, and we're looking at millions and millions of dollars of development and possible laundered money in our community. Can we do something about what has happened in the past? I'd certainly hope we could. For 20, I guess.
Staff want to comment on that?
Through your worship to Councillor Steves, if there's a connection that's made that would be of a criminal investigative nature, then that can be forwarded to the RCMP. It is well within the realm of possibility that once these registries go online, that there will be a number of important leads that will be generated out of that. So where there is this intelligence and there is this potential investigative lead, that's where the local detachment will be able to work more closely with FinTrack and particularly trace some of these numbered companies, which often there can be shells within shells that go overseas. But where there is that potential for a nexus to criminality, it would be something that could be referred to the RCMP and potentially also referred to the CRA, if that's the case. I would also add that with the beneficial registries, you're likely to have tax authorities in other countries take particular note, as there are many Canadians that have dual nationality.
Through your worship to Councillor Steves, I might also add that there is no limitation period when it comes to criminal proceedings. So to the extent additional information becomes public or available to the city, and that information is shared with the RCMP or other authorities, that information can be used to initiate criminal proceedings at that time or in the future.
Thanks. My final comment then is I hope when this information does become available that we seriously take a look at the implications of some of the transactions going on over the last 10 years, because it certainly has affected our community in a very negative way.
All right, Bill and Harold, your hands are still up. Carol, didn't you already speak?
Mayor Brody. So we're voting right now at 17C, but then are we coming back to the referral that Councillor McNulty suggested, that we require names, not just numbers, on all applications of businesses and homes?
Don't we, to staff, don't we already have a referral on that?
Through your worship, we did receive direction at General Purposes last week to provide information on who owner and authorized agent are on all future applications. The two applications that were considered tonight, memos were provided with that information. Subsequent reports that will come forward will identify who the authorized agent is and who the owner of the property is. If it is a numbered company, we will provide the name of the directors of that company.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I was just not clear if we were.
All right, your hand's still up. I know there's enthusiasm for all this information, but first of all, a numbered company is, when you go to incorporate a company, they ask you what name you want to call it. And if you don't tell them a name, you get a number, which is the actual incorporation number for that company. So people are taking something from the fact that it's a numbered company. In fact, it means nothing more than if you call it ABC Corporation or something. Secondly, who is the applicant? I mean, the registered owner is going to be the applicant, but they could have many, many different investors, many different people who are involved. Is what council is saying, you want to know all those various people? Because first of all, it could be a very long list. It could change from time to time because that's the way these things go. And and the idea that it would be incomplete would be real. And you might find people, they just don't, if they want to be a silent partner, they just don't want to deal with Richmond. I mean, is that what we want? So I'm not saying that we shouldn't be concerned with applicants, et cetera. I'm just pointing out that there are a lot of different sides to this whole thing. And, you may get some information that is quite incomplete or, almost misleading in the kind of information you're going to get. I think that our job, for the most part, is to focus on appropriate use of land. What is the appropriate use of land? And yes, I take Councillor Steve's point that if we have a particularly bad experience with some builders, we have to see what we can do. I just don't know that what we're talking about here is what's going to get there. Anyway, on the motion on the money services business, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Brings us to announcements and events. First of all, oops, where did that go? Where'd that go? I have the announcements here somewhere. They were right here. Just hang on, just bear with me a minute. Here they are. Okay, the first thing is to remind everybody that this is the last regularly scheduled council meeting for the summer. We'll start again in September, right after Labor Day. So we'll have a General Purposes Committee meeting, Finance Committee meeting, and a public hearing on September 8th, right after Labor Day. So there may be a special meeting that we may need to call during August, but we'll see how that goes. This is a reminder that the metered utility payments are now due. And these are for utility payments from January to March, and they are due by this Thursday. Paid by that time, you get a 10% discount, or you lose it. You can make your payment online through your financial institution or at City Hall by check. Cash, remember, is not accepted. Then we have Pride Week on July 27th to August 2nd. This is Pride Week in Richmond. As an inclusive and engaging city, we celebrate diversity and our LGBTQ community. So experience a variety of online Pride Week activities by visiting our website, richmond.ca/Pride Week, or following at Fun Richmond on social media. So the activities are open to all members of the community and are presented by the city in partnership with the various community associations. Now, with COVID and the pandemic, we're looking at restoring some services. The city continues to carefully restore some services and access to facilities and amenities as part of our Restoring Richmond plan. During the past week, we reopened the art gallery, the Brighouse Public Library, the main building at the Britannia Shipyards National Historic Site, and the South Arm Outdoor Pool. We're also offering a variety of outdoor fitness classes and day-to-day camps for children and youth. To maintain visitor and staff safety, new protocols are in place to facilitate physical distancing. So if you want to register for any of those programs, go to richmond.ca/register. And for information on the city's restoration plans and what is currently open, please visit richmond.ca/COVID-19. And just a safety reminder for the COVID situation. We've seen, after flattening the curve everywhere in British Columbia and across the country, we're aware that there's been a recent rise in the number of cases. Remember that your choices make a difference and affect everyone in your circle and your community. So just a reminder of what you've heard so many times, but it's worth mentioning. As we enter the summer months, please socialize safely and follow the recommendations of the local public health authorities. Stay 2 meters apart, keep your group small, 2 to 6 people, avoid crowded, closed, or indoor spaces, and wear a mask. And if you're sick, stay home. All right, with that, we'll go to bylaws for adoption.
Thank you, Your Worship. There are 5 bylaws for adoption this evening. Bylaws 1, 4, and 5 have no noted opposition, and bylaws 2 and 3 have opposition.
Okay.
Move 1, 2, and 5.
1, 4, and 5 are moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. The next one.
Move bylaw 10.57.
Okay, so that's moved and seconded. Discussion on that one. Okay, all those in favor? Those opposed? It is carried with Councillors Wolf, Day, Green, and Harold. Are you against that? Opposed to that? I think Harold is. So it's carried. The third one, 9563.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried with Councillors Day and Wolf opposed. Development Permit Panel.
Thank you, Your Worship. There are 2 recommendations for Council. The first, that the minutes of the Development Permit Panel meeting held on July 15th and the Chair's report for the Development Permit Panel meetings held on January 29th, October 25th, 2017, and July 15th, 2020 be received for information. And recommendation 2, that the recommendations of the panel to authorize the issuance of a development permit for the property at 8600, 8620, 8640, and 8660 Francis Road, and a development permit for the property at 8620 Railway Avenue, and a development permit for the property at 1600 Savage Road be endorsed and the permit so issued, and that the recommendation of the panel to authorize the approval of changes to the design of the development permit issued for the property at 23100 Garapi Avenue be endorsed and the changes be deemed to be in general compliance with the permit.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Okay, we've got Councillor Wolf.
Thank you. Just 2 real quick ones from the minutes. My first question, through Your Worship, to staff is, this is on page 373, and I'm just a little bit confused by the wording in the fourth paragraph there, and I think it's pretty important. So this is the building right at the corner of Westminster Highway and Gilly out in Hamilton. And in that last, the 4th paragraph, that line there, it says the development would have been required to achieve LEED silver equivalency way back when it was originally rezoned. So does that mean that they are not LEED silver? Could that be clarified?
Through Your Worship, to Councillor Wolf, no, the building is LEED silver equivalent.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. The second one is a couple pages in, 377. This is discussing the Mosaic development, 3 Road and Williams. On there, it talks about the Juliet balconies, and it says that they're not designed for residents to stand on. So it's like maybe they put a plant out or they sit or crouch when they go out there. Is there any existing Juliet balconies that are like this in the city?
Through Your Worship, to Councillor Wolf, I would have to look into that matter. I'm sure there are Juliet balconies on other buildings in the city, but I couldn't give you an address at this time. I would note that the application in question in the minutes is not on the agenda tonight. It will come forward in the future. I will have that information available when that development comes forward.
I look forward to that. Thanks so much.
Councillor Green.
Thank you very much. I was hoping to give direction to staff on 2A and B that the playgrounds are improved from their current state. They're very inadequate, that there should be opportunity for children to use their gross motor muscles in either jumping, climbing, sliding, something like that. And these don't provide that. So if there can be direction for that as a condition of the DP, that would be great.
Mr. Craig, that's not possible, is it? We have our choices. We either send it to public hearing, we either approve it, or we send it back to the panel. That's it, isn't it?
No, Your Worship. We could, council could pass the development permits with direction to staff, and we would ensure that happens prior to the building permit issuance.
So we can amend what the development permit panel has said?
For something of this nature, yes.
Okay. All right, so, Council, what is exactly the direction you want to give for 2A and B?
To improve the playground equipment.
All right. So we'll take that as an amendment. On the amendment, is it seconded? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. So then on the entire recommendation, all those in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. Someone move adjournment.
Move adjournment.
We're now adjourned. See you in September.